Love, we got a treat for you now. All my friends, all 6 or 7 or 8 or 200 of them showed up here at Ross Barnett. They're on their Gold Wings over here, and Bill's going to interview them. And Bill, I told him that you were going to give them $10 a piece to interview them.
How you doing? I'm Bill Young.
Sonny Baker. Glad to meet you, Bill.
Sonny, where are you from?
Mobile.
Oh, we got the whole group from Mobile,
Right, every one of us.
What are you riding today, Sonny?
99 Gold Wing.
How do you like it?
Love it.
Now, I tell you what, I got to admire these guys that travel and pull a trailer and camp.
Right.
So you guys are really, really roughing it, right?
Enjoying it.
Sonny, your wife already let the cat out the bag.
But you got to, you know, the women get cold.
Tell us how you handle the temperature change, Sonny.
About 5 or 6 jackets, long sleeve shirts, long
I want to know what she sleeps under at
electric
night.
Blanket.
An electric blanket. So we are roughing it.
This goes all the way to Mobile.
It's still plugged in back in Mobile. That's the longest extension cord in the free world, I'm telling you. Sonny, thanks a million, buddy. We appreciate it. Have a safe ride. What kind of bike you riding today?
84 Gold Wing.
An 80?
Oh, they let you ride with you?
Wait a minute.
Oh, you guys are tough.
These guys wouldn't buy you a new one. They buy all themselves new ones.
I know it, and they got all kinds of money, too.
That's the way the Lost Tribe is, you know. The higher up you are, the more money you have.
Wait a minute. So we've already spoken to all the chiefs, right?
That's right.
Then we can talk with Jimmy.
Is Jimmy bringing up the tail end of this group?
Like you and me.
Actually, I let us in here.
I was hoping they don't make you ride about 2 miles behind them just because your bike's about a week older than theirs, huh?
No.
You know, that's a nice thing, though, about your bikes.
Equality in motorcycling. It's come a long way, folks.
The nice thing about bikes, though, I don't care what year you ride, and you take a look at these bikes, they're all in great shape. I guarantee you that they check these things out before they go on their trips. So if you go on a long trip, make sure you get everything checked out and enjoy yourself out on the road. Exactly. And be like these folks. Go out and have a great time. That's what this is all about.
It doesn't matter what you ride. Just ride.
Our next stop was Rocky Springs. Now a ghost town, this area once reached a population of around 2,400 people. However, the Civil War, yellow fever, and a series of poor agricultural seasons eventually led to the demise or flight of all its citizens. So this is Rocky Springs, huh?
This is it, Rocky Springs, man.
It looks like a safe, Bill.
When's the last time you saw a safe sitting in the middle of the woods, Hank?
In addition to a few artifacts, all that remains is the old Methodist church that once overlooked a bustling community.
You know, I don't understand it. I take Hank to the neatest places. We're right here. I mean, this is the premier spot at Rocky Springs. It's a church. Hank's nowhere to be found. Hank! Where are you? Hey!
Hey, Bill! Come on up.
How did you get up in there?
Easy. I know people in high places, man. Look at this. Is this place wild or what?
Oh, this is cool. This is in the middle of nowhere, Hank.
Rocky Springs?
I tell you what, this is a place on the trace everybody ought to stop.
1837. Can you imagine if these walls could talk, what they could tell us? Look, there's a piano. How'd you like to play a tune or something? Can you
play a tune?
Yeah.
Oh, we might play something for the folks.
Yeah, you're pretty good. For the folks that don't know, Bill's multi-talented, see? Here we are in Rocky Springs in the church, and who do we run into but the former pastor's daughters?
Girls, introduce yourselves.
I'm Kelly Knight. I'm Butch Knight's youngest daughter. He's the former minister here at Rocky Springs.
And I'm the oldest daughter, Candy Knight.
So you were telling us a little history about the church. Can you tell us a little bit about the church itself and how they divided it and why?
Okay. Well, first thing we told you about was that these 2 windows at each end of the church weren't here before. Previously, the window behind the minister was just a solid wall, and it had a picture on it with Jesus picking up a lamb. Candy, my sister, was telling you about how they divided the church into 2 sections with pretty much they just put a board in between the 2 sections of the pews. The men sat on the right hand of the minister, and the women sat on the left.
When we were here with our father as pastor, we knew several of, obviously with the campground down below, you get a lot of people coming through for services and what have you, but there are some basic members that have come here since the beginning, and their family has as well. And so we knew some of the ladies that have never sat with their husbands whatsoever.
So they've come to Sunday service and never sat together with their husband or wives.
Let me ask you this now. You also you were telling us a little bit about the cemetery.
Right.
And can you tell the folks what we were talking about as far as the cemetery?
In the cemetery, during the yellow fever epidemic and so forth, there were a lot of people dying. So when they were all buried facing the wrong way. They're all supposed to be buried facing the east. And in the Bible, Jesus comes from the east. So when our father was minister, there was a big to-do about all that, and so they had to dig up all the bodies and turn them around to make them face the proper way.
How were we so lucky to run into you?
I try to come back often. I don't live far from here.
I live in Lakeland, Florida. I go to school at Florida Southern College in Lakeland, so I live quite far away. And I was home for Thanksgiving, and I was like, let's go back. So it's a very special place to us.
Stay tuned. Cycle Fever will be right back.
In the remote corner of Claiborne County are the remains of the elaborate Windsor Mansion. Reminiscent of Athens, Greece, the huge standing columns are all that's left of the 25-room structure built in 1859. But you got to get off the beaten path, and when you get off the beaten path, it costs us nothing to come here. Absolutely nothing, just a little bit of legwork to find the place. And once we found it, this is history. This is something that you can read about, but if you're over here and you actually see it, it's just mind-boggling to see something like this in the middle of nowhere. The mansion was designed to reflect the height of Southern life at the time, and is even rumored to have served as an overlook for Mark Twain. During the Civil War, the mansion was used as a Union hospital and an observation post. Ironically, it survived the war between the states, but gave way to a fire at the young age of 30 years when a house guest discarded a lit cigar on the upper balcony. The only image of the mansion in its entirety is a sketch made by a lieutenant from Ohio during the relocation of the Union troops headed for Vicksburg. I tell you what, the scenery's gorgeous. What do you say we beat feet down the road and see what else is coming up?
Let's load up and go.
Now, when traveling the Trace, it's important to realize that this isn't a populated road, and precautions should be taken for gas and lodging. In fact, the Trace was probably more equipped for the travelers during its heyday. In 1810, approximately 10,000 boatmen and other travelers headed north on the Trace, and while it underwent improvements, other comforts began to spring up. By 1815, more than 20 local inns were in operation, some providing no more than a roof over their heads. One such inn that still exists is Mount Locust near Natchez. We were fortunate enough to speak to Eric Chamberlain, who had a special interest in the building.
This old house was my old family home. I was born in this room, as was my father, my grandfather, my great-grandfather, built by my great-great-grandparents, and my great-great-great-grandmother lived here with a daughter and shared the back girls' room with her granddaughter.
No.
The Park Service bought the property, the house in 75 acres from my grandmother in 1938. She moved back behind the cemetery about 200 yards and built a home. And that's where I live today.
That's outstanding.
Yep. Now, this room served as a bar or a tap room for these travelers traveling up the Trace. I'm sure you've learned by now that these were the boatmen or the King Tucks, walking or riding horses from Natchez to Nashville. The old Trace passed right in front of the house. These guys would arrive here at Mount Locust late in the afternoon, tired, cold, wet, and hungry. The folks living here were corn farmers. They'd give them something to eat, allow them to sleep on the back porch of Mount Locust or out in the backyard. Over in the corner, it looks like they ran out of material. That's where the old wall bar used to be. You set your bottles up on shelves at the high point there. This lower section came out and formed a bar for the bartender. By 1799, they must have been doing pretty good because they built a two-story dormitory just on the other side of the split rail fence called Sleepy Hollow. 2 floors, wall-to-wall corn shuck mattresses. You just came in, grabbed a mattress, and laid down next to another traveler if you trusted him. You probably notice there's no connecting doors from this room to the rooms on either end because those were private family quarters which were added. The master bedroom on this end, the little room behind it, doubled as a nursery for the children. The items that you'll see in that room, the kitchen items and the tools were probably been in the kitchen located about 50 feet down the slope, away from the house because of the heat, possibility of a fire. By 1810, they had 11 children in the house, added the room down here on the end for the boys, the one behind it for the girls. None of the furniture, the antiques, or the artifacts in the old house are original to Mount Locust, but they are authentic to the year 1810, 1820. Everything is either a reproduction or an antique.
Folks, don't let Hank make reservations for you anywhere, anytime.
What? Who are you talking about?
I'm talking about you.
Oh, cut me a break. This is gorgeous.
We had a great trip on the Trace.
Hey, we'll see you next week
on Cycle Fever.
Catch it.
It's contagious.